Giroux, and Ruben Blades.
Producer of the Year goes to a record producer for outstanding creativity in a representative body of work released during the eligibility year. And here are the nominees.
Emilio and the Jerks. Quincy Jones. Sorry. Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson. I was in a hurry. Daniel Lanois and Brian Angel. John Mellencamp and Don Gaiman. Narada Michael Walden.
And the producer of the year is Narada Michael Walden.
Wow. That's beautiful. Oh, I go touch Quincy's hand. Mm-hmm.
How you like me now?
Welcome, everyone. Great to have you here tonight. We're getting ready to get out of the vault. I'm Kristen McFarland. Welcome to our new series, Out of the Vault, where we'll be spotlighting exciting moments in our San Francisco chapter history. Tonight, we'll hear from multi-Grammy winning producer Narada Michael Walden on the making of two iconic albums from Aretha Franklin and Whitney Houston, recorded right here in the Bay Area. Many of you submitted questions in advance. If you'd like to add some more in the chat, I'll queue them up later at the end of tonight's conversation. I'll let you know that tonight's session is being recorded. I'd also like to let you know tonight's program is brought to you by our San Francisco chapter producers and engineers wing and songwriter and composers wing in recognition of June Black Music Month. And this is also part of our San Francisco chapter music history series. So let's get started. Leading tonight's Out of the Vault conversation is our own renowned vocalist and San Francisco chapter president. Please welcome Nona Brown.
What's up, everybody? Wow, this is exciting. The day has finally come. I'm Nona Brown, and as a vocalist inspired by so many artists he's to work with, it is my honor to lead tonight's conversation with Narada Michael Walden. Let me tell you a little bit about him. Producing hits for artists as diverse as Aretha Franklin, Whitney Houston, George Michael, Mariah Carey, Barbra Streisand, Lionel Richie, Lisa Fisher, Stevie Wonder, Jeff Beck, Steve Winwood, Ray Charles, The Temptations, and Wynonna Judd, Emmy and multi-Grammy winning Narada Michael Walden has been at the helm of hit music that spans decades. His music flows freely from pop, rock, soul to the rarefication realm of jazz, fusion, global music. Narada was an integral part of introducing Whitney Houston and megastar Mariah Carey to millions of fans worldwide, producing and writing their breakthrough hits that first brought these divas to the spotlight. Billboard magazine, check this out, you guys. Billboard magazine honored him as one of the top 10 producers of our time. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Narada Michael Walden.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you, Nona. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Wow.
Happy to be here.
Man, that was a lot.
Okay. Okay.
I want to rewind back and I want to get to know you a little bit. Tell me, how did your music career get started from jazz drummer to multi-Grammy winning producer of the top female vocalist of all time? Please tell us how.
Wow, no, that's a beautiful
Please.
question. First of all, I want to say thanks everybody for being here, checking in our show on your screens. I'm so happy to be sitting here in front of you and having this opportunity to bring my heart's inspiration to you. I come from a very humble place called Kalamazoo, Michigan. And people in Michigan are sweet and hardworking and love music. And in my childhood, my mom's family was always playing beautiful music. As a young 3 and 4 years old, I could hear Nina Simone live at Town Hall, playing Summertime. And it was a live album, so really beautiful. And I would get like a little pie tin as my symbol and a little box and play along. And that was my education. Nina Simone was one of the first things to really touch my heart. And then, of course, it evolved into Cannibal Adderley. It evolved into Dave Brubeck, and evolved into lots of different jazz things with Jimmy Smith, The Sermon. And then, of course, when I heard Little Richard's music on a 78 of, Lucille and Long Tall Sally at my grandma's house. And that was like rock and roll, and would really make my hair stand. So I could really feel electricity coming from that. So I love the rock aspects. Then I loved an album by Ray Charles, another album live that he recorded live in Atlanta. What I say, Drown My Own Tears. But he was so excited to be live, and the band sounded so tight. I carried that in the snow with me. This album really turned me out. All the inflections in his voice, all the little things he would do, and his control of the band being so tight. So I've always been such a big fan. Then we had a cottage way up north. Up north, we hear on the little radio, the Isley Brothers, Twist and Shout when it came out. That was explosive,
Wow.
Also, I must say, like pieces, there's an album by a cat named Horace Silver, 6 Pieces of Silver, or 5 Pieces of Silver, whatever it's called, with Senor Blues. A young drummer named Lewis Hayes from Detroit was 18 years old. And he was in my consciousness. They were saying little Lewis is, young, so learn by him. So we studied him a lot. So it's always these things around me to inspire me musically. And I've always loved the sound of women's voices. As I grew, I became really attracted also to all the female vocalists and try to imitate them and memorize their riffs,
Amazing.
Yeah, so I'm just a real music lover. I think so many people like me come from Michigan, come from Minneapolis, like Prince. Of course, Detroit's not far away. Chicago's not far away. Curtis Mayfield, all that. We just love music. And I'm just so blessed to be born at this time when the music was so rich, you see. I was able to go to the Regal Theater in Chicago and see Stevie Wonder do Fingertips,
Wow.
be knocked back by seeing this genius at 12, 13 years old walk on the stage like an alien and have the screaming girls in his palm with his harmonica and his voice so beautiful and high, and the band on fire for Fingertips Part 1 and 2. So witnessing that really stained and burned a fire in my spirit. So I'm just very blessed to be born at the time I'm born. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you get off the drum set, you put your sticks down, boom, you're done. And then you're a producer, but not just a producer, you're producing hits. Tell us a little bit about how do we connect that right there? From the drum set to producer, what got you to say, hey, I want to be producer and I'm going to produce some hits? Please tell us.
Thank you. Quincy Jones became a mentor, a friend of mine that really inspired me, saying we need more producers. I knew it was true, but he really did say you might want to think more seriously about spending more time writing and producing. We could really use more help. So he put that fire on me. But if I'm honest, the first album I made and the first example I really watched and witnessed and learned by was the Beatles producer, George Martin. Yeah. I'm with a band called the Mahavishnu Orchestra. And that band was in London making an album called Apocalypse with London Symphony. I'd be on drums. Ralph Armstrong would be on bass. He's 17. He came with me. Gail Moran on keyboards. She's a beautiful singer and piano player. The great genius composer and player, Mahavishnu John McLaughlin on guitar. And then on violin, Jean-Luc Ponty. So this band, cutting with the Beatles producer and his engineer, Jeff Emmerich, in London at London Air Studios, really opened my eyes to production, watching him just being around how he did things. He made everything look quite easy, actually. It'd be really difficult because we had the strings in one room, the symphony in one room, and the rhythm section being in another room. We were communicating with cameras, little tiny screens, so I could see Michael Hudson Thomas conducting, and he could see me on his screen. So it's a really difficult album to make, playing in 13, playing in 11, playing in odd meters, doing all this improvisation. But George Martin, Sir George Martin, made everything just flow so beautifully. And then I would ask him, I said, I love how you phase Ringo's cymbals. Can you phase my cymbals? He would say, no, I've already done that. Oh, okay. So I learned, the standards of what was going on. And not long after, I worked with him again, an album with Jeff Beck called Wired, in the same room. Here I am with Jeff Beck, another great improvisationist guitarist, and we're cutting lead boots, and I wrote Come Dancing, Sophie, Play With Me. Here's George Martin with me, just being so cool and so easy. Then I made my first solo album. It was done with Dennis Mackay, my engineer from London, and Tommy Dowd from Atlantic Studios in New York. The same room where Aretha had cut, the same room where Ray Charles had cut. Here's Tommy Dowd. So I'm watching him produce. So I've had great examples in my life of wonderful producers. Also, the second Mahavishnu Orchestra album was done by Ken Scott, another great Beatle aficionado from the Whites album and all those things he had done. So here he's making my drums sound so beautiful, so crystal clear. So I've had lots of examples in my life of wonderful people who are wonderful producers, and just being around them. John McLaughlin, the man who discovered me, was also a wonderful producer, had the great vision, had the great imagination, and knowing how to bring the best out of people like myself.
That's awesome to know that a lot of your inspiration came from listening. And the interesting thing is, anybody can go in a room and listen, but you got to already have something in you that someone else pulls out of you. So I think that's absolutely amazing. Let me ask you, what attracted you to working on music in San Francisco?
I got married in 78, and my guru, Sri Chinmoy, said, you would be really successful living in the Bay Area. One of your dear friends lives here, is Carlos Santana. And Carlos had really taken me under his wing as a friend. We became really close. We were both into meditation, into prayer life. And he had a beautiful restaurant here called Dipti Nivas. And it was just a nice place to come and move to. I'd played concerts here with Mahavishnu Orchestra at the Winterland, touring with Jeff Beck. We'd done stuff out here. And I always liked the vibe out here in San Francisco. And so I said, well, I'll come and live in the Bay Area in 78. And as it worked out, it was wonderful because the studios here were just really open to experimentation. The record plant in Sausalito, where I did early Stacey Lattisal's music, Let Me Be Your Angel, Dynamite, Jump to the Beat. The Automat is really where I cut my teeth strong, doing a lot of music at the Automat with Dave Rubinson up in there. He owned the place. There was a great writer named Jeffrey Cohen who later went on to compose with me Freeway of Love. We met Preston Glass. He came on in when I was working at the Automat. I had Charlie Boom, my A&R, Charlie Boom Chapman. Frank Martin, I knew, brought him in. Corrado from Italy, he came in. Randy Jackson was around in the Bay Area. He came in the Automat area. So San Francisco just was a right place for me to just cut my teeth and really get it going on. New York being so high, a high revolution, high speed, may have been tougher than the Bay Area. It was a little bit more chill and really wanted to welcome us. So I'm really, really hats off to the Bay Area. Yeah.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. I heard a little bit about food drew you to the Bay Area, just a cool vibe. And I have to agree with you. The Bay Area has a nice little vibe and a little sound.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, who were some of the local folks who helped plug you into some of the, connect you with some of the producers?
You mean here in the Bay Area?
Yeah, here in the Bay.
Well, I mentioned some of the musicians I worked with here. I mentioned David Rubinson because David Rubinson, although he owned the Automat, he was in touch with the Pointer Sisters. He was in touch with Herbie Hancock. He was close also with Carlos, producing some things with Carlos. So he was a bigwig here, and I had a lot of love for him. And I just learned by watching everybody. Michelle Zarin ran the Automat. She was a lovely lady. People were always very kind. I mentioned Jeffrey Cohen, my writer. He was a great, great man. And we're still very close. Also, my chief engineer, I met at the Automat, named David Frazier. Dave and I became really tight after I worked with a cat named Ken Kesey and Marone Droney and Leslie Ann Jones.
Yeah.
I met them all through the Automat. But David Frazier and I, then when I moved to Tarpan Studios, he came with me here. Also, I brought Janice Lee to run the studio from the Automat. So,
Wow.
and also I met a girl named Shiloh from the Sausalito record plant. She came to run Tarpan with me. So all these fertile minds and fertile souls were here. But then you have to also know the Bay Area is responsible for Sly and the Family Stone, which
Yes.
changed the world. The Bay Area is responsible for Tower Power, changed the world. Cold Blood, the drummer in the Cold Blood. A lot of folks may not know this, but this cat was named Sandy McGee. Sandy McGee just completely ripped holes in funk. To this day, I bow down to this cat, Sandy McGee. So I'm just saying the Bay Area is just rich with people who have the understanding of music and knew how to pioneer it, knew how to take apart the best things that they loved from Ray Charles, the best thing they loved from the church, best thing they loved from, Oh Happy Day, the Hawkins families, all the things that come out of here, Huey Lewis and the News, then comes Journey coming. They kind of combine the soul R&B with rock and funk and or Latin if it's Carlos, and or jazz if it's Herbie, whoever it is, they have a nice mixture coming out of the Bay Area, kind of like a free-flowing thing. When you go down to the Haight-Ashbury, you get a free-flowing thing going down. And a lot of beauty, a lot of class, the Golden Gate Bridge and the beauty of the ocean. So there's a lot coming through here.
When I think of the iconic music in the Bay Area, I think of two words: rich roots.
Yeah.
We have rich roots right here in the Bay Area. So I'm going to help set the stage a little bit for you.
Yeah.
Let's go back in time. Let's take a little trip to the 80s, where the women were wearing their high waist pants and their leg warmers, and the men were wearing their bomber jackets and their loafers. Take us back to the time where you worked on the Aretha Franklin Who's Zoomin' Zoo. Who's Zooming Who? Set it up for us. Set the session up for us. Who was there?
Well, let me go back. I can take it right there, but let me say how that happened, because it wouldn't have happened had it not been for the benevolence of Clive Davis. At that time, Clive asked me about producing Dionne Warwick, who I adored. Burt Bacharach and Hal David and all that music was just like my teacher. However, at that time, it wasn't meant for me to work with Dionne. So Clive said, well, what about Aretha?
Wow.
And I was going, well, absolutely. He said, well, just give her a phone call. Just like that, just give her a phone call.
Wow.
So here I'm just giving Aretha Franklin a phone call. And on the phone call was really enlightenment, because Aretha is so natural that she would speak to me like this. I would say, well, I know we're just meeting over the phone, but what do you do to have fun? And she would say, oh, maybe I go out to a nightclub. Maybe in the nightclub, I see a guy, he looks at me, I look at him. He looks good to me. It's kind of like a who's zooming who.
Right. I love it. That was good.
But he's looking at me, I'm looking at him. But then you know what? He thinks he's got me, but then the fish jumps off the hook. The fish jumps off the hook.
Ah.
That's how she talks.
Wow.
And I'm just going on with her like this, realizing this is really who she is. Just that creative. We know she's a genius singer, genius pianist, composer, all that. But I didn't realize she was just this walking stream of consciousness when she speaks. So I'm writing these things. I'm going like, I'm going to make a hit song out of this stuff.
Wow.
And sure enough, I got with Preston Glass the next day. I said, my conversation with Aretha, we got to make a smash out of this. So we did. We went to my little keyboards. At the time was a new instrument. I could go booga dooga 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 goom doom ching ding doom ching booga dooga dooga doom doom ching. It was like a Roland 808 909 machine. It was brand new at the time. So just kind of find my new sense of funkability with this machine on the vibration of what Aretha gave me called Who's Zooming Who. So that's how it was made. At the same time, I must tell you this, in the passing of Tina Turner, on my mind was the success of Tina Turner. And I wanted that success at that time for number one for Aretha. So I had to study what was happening for Tina at the time. And look at her, look at Aretha, look at this baby we're going to make. And keep all the things I want for Aretha, at the same time understand the tempos and things that that Tina was doing, because I wanted to make sure we were going to step into some of the glory that she was laying down.
Wow.
See, that's
Yeah.
what a producer does in me.
Yes.
I try to combine what I'm hearing with the artist I'm working with and mix it together. In other words, the song is a baby. Here comes the song. Here comes the song. But then you got to dress the baby for the times. So that's what I was really
great.
focusing on doing for Aretha, making sure we didn't miss on that.
That's
And then it was
awesome.
Preston Glass that said to me,
Wow.
that song you've written for yourself called Freeway of Love, why don't you give that to Aretha?
Wow.
I said, Preston, I would never have thought that. I mean, I wrote thousands of songs, you see, thousands. So for Preston to say to me, why don't you take that song Freeway of Love and we changed the lyric around for Aretha? I was like, wow, what a great idea. I would never have thought that. So we did. I got with Jeffrey Cohen, my writer, and knew you'd be a vision in white. How did you get your pants so tight? Don't know how you're living, but you must be living right. Oh, we got some places to see. I brought all my maps with me. So jump in, ain't no sin. Take a ride in my machine. You know, city of traffic moving way too slow. Hit the pedal and go.
Love it.
Go. Go. We're going riding on the freeway. On the freeway, I love in my pink Cadillac. We're going to ride on the freeway. And this was Jeffrey Cohen's genius. I had no idea for how to ride in Cadillac. He goes, winds against my back. I go, damn, you're cold-blooded.
Yeah.
See, that's how it all kind of came. At the time, who's hot in the city was Sylvester and my backup singer, Jeannie Tracy. So she brought Sylvester down to the studio, and I knew that sound would be something that Aretha would love because it was gospely and churchy and authentic. Sylvester was authentic.
Yeah.
And had all the, hey, all the high in his voice. You put that with Jeannie Tracy and my other, and Jim Gilstrap flying him in from LA, who's saying, you are the sunshine of my life, on Stevie's record, brought him in. You know, I always put together these great backing singers so the thing would just sound like it's supposed to sound like. Before you even put the Queen on there, before you even put a Whitney on it, make the thing sound like it's supposed to sound like.
Love it. Here we are again with our rich roots. You got Jeannie Tracy, Sylvester right here from the Bay. What I loved about what you said is that you wrote a hit song based on a conversation. Sometimes people sit for hours trying to create something, and sometimes the message is right in front of you. It's just a conversation, and you take your creative mind and turn it into a hit song like you did. Do you remember at that time who was there in the studio when you were recording? And again, that was at the Automat, correct?
Yes. Who's Them and Who would be written in Studio B. I had Preston Glass with me, but it was born out of the drum machine. The opening riff on that record, if you listen to the opening of Who's Them and Who, those machines, that was what I wanted. I needed Aretha to have a cutting edge, a new sound. And you can imagine, at this time, machinery was new in music. Synthesizers and bass was new in music. Drum machines beating hard with 808 drums, bass drums was new in music. These new little cowbells, these new little claps I could get up on. It was a new sound for music, so that we could just kind of put it together in a way we knew was going to be something that people could really put in their heart and live for years and years and years. This was the kind of balancing act I was trying to find, like a fine gumbo. So in the studio would be Leslie Ann may have been around that time. My engineer David Frazier may have been around with me to help me cut it. I would go on my Prophet and help write the keys, get in Randy Jackson on the bass, Corrado Ricci my Italian guitar on guitar, Preston to be with me, Walter Sanavi to be with me as well, young Walter, who later went on to become the top producer for Titanic and Mariah's Christmas songs, all those. He was in my camp, a little young cat. So I've always had young, beautiful people around me who I adore.
Amazing.
And just stay focused on the song, because Quincy Jones taught me the song is the star. The song is the star. So we always focus on having the song be the star. And that means that the chorus has to live on its own. The chorus has to be so badass that you want anywhere in the world you can sing it. They all want to sing anywhere in the world. So that's what I do. Almost like a cheerleader in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
What can I imagine being a smash in a little broke down ghetto joint in Kalamazoo? It could also be a smash on Onassis boat. It could also be a smash in the White House. It could be a smash in Germany. Could be, you know what I mean? I want all their buttons to click. All the buttons to click.
Love it, man. I love it.
Yeah.
And it sounds like your writing process is it different every time?
It's different in that that the message from my spirit could be different with a different melody for the day, but it's the same process of just trusting myself. You have to trust yourself that, you know, like you say, out of a conversation, you can put music to that conversation. You haven't got to keep searching. And that's why I always record the first thing comes to me on the piano or drum, the first thing. And I try to stick to that. If I change it, it's like changing the baby. I try to stick with the first things that come to me and honor the first things that comes to me. And I try to work quickly, actually. Like just ask the Spirit, ask God to give the gift, believe in the gift and go with it. And then spend time on how you dress it, how you produce it, how you dress that baby. But the baby is the first thing that comes to you.
That's amazing. That's amazing. You answered one of the questions of, you know, how do you come up with all these catchy lyrics and catchy tunes? And it sounds like you put a lot of thought into it. You know, the chorus, it's got to be singable. It's got to be something that people, they hear it once and they walk away and they're singing it. So that is just absolutely amazing. Let me ask you.
Don't forget our teachers.
Oh,
Back it up. Don't forget, I come from Motown, was just down the road.
oh my goodness.
I mean, you know, Smokey Robinson, the genius of all, he's right down the road. Marvin Gaye's right down the road. Holland Ocean Holland, they're right down the road. Young Stevie Wonder. The Supremes is strong. They're in my grandma's living room. You know, Where'd Our Love Go and Baby Love, you know, hit songs.
Amazing.
So even though I learned to be a jazz rock drummer with Ma Vishnu and Weather Report, Tommy Bolden, Robert Fripp, you know, Carlos, and so many great jazz cats. As a kid, I understand pop, soul, funk music.
That is absolutely amazing. I wanted to know, how long did it take you to put the whole record together?
Which album are we on?
So we're on Aretha Franklin.
Who's Zooming Who? How it worked out was this. I put together Who's Zooming Who. I put together a track called Until You Say You Love Me, which is my favorite, my personal favorite. It echoes the production style of Prince at the time from the Purple Rain album of The Beautiful Ones. Mm-hmm. At the time, you understand, you had to be cutting edge. So there was nothing more cutting edge than Prince of like The Beautiful Ones, where the drums would be like cut fast and then slow down and sound like. So then you put eerie strings, then you combine an Aretha Franklin gospel on top of that. It's like, oh, this is something brand new. So those are the first two things I actually cut. Who's Zooming You? Until You Say You Love Me. And you have to know, I would fly back to Detroit to see Aretha. And Aretha this time was very tender. Her father had died after being in coma for 2 years. Reverend C.L. Franklin, the great Reverend C.L. Franklin, who was her inspiration. So when he passed away, she then felt inspired to want to sing again and record. And when I would go there for this first time, we were down, not in the main room, but in the downstairs B room. And she would be very sensitive. And she would ask me to rub her shoulder, and I would rub it. But when I say rub her shoulder, it was very light, like I'm barely touching her. Like if I touched her like I would normally massage, oh no, that would be too much. Oh, just wow. barely touching her, you know, like that. And what she would do is, on a song like Who's Zooming Who, she would sing it down the octave 4 to 5 times, like just everything, just to warm the voice down the octave. Sing the whole song through down the octave 4 or 5 times. Then she'll say, okay, now I'm ready. Wow. From that moment on, when you're recording, now she's up in her main range, that's a record. That first take, pow, is a record.
Did you say first take?
Yeah, that's a record. Then you got a second one she'll give you, maybe a third one. And then you say, because I'm really smart. And I've already let her know I'm there not to ever fight with her. I'm there to love her, respect her. Wow. So then I say to her, let me just get one more ending with the fireworks before because I know if I go into a verse, you're going to get heady and you're going to want to be more pop conscious of a melody that's not too R&B-ish to get the world. So I say, let's go and do the ending one more time. If you don't mind, give me all your fireworks while your horses are running. Let the horse run hard. And she will. She'll all the fireworks, get all that and bag it. Okay, that's great. Now I can go back and just get a first verse and making sure that as I'm hearing it, I'm hearing the verse with my white sensibility, my Black sensibility, my Asian sensibility, my world sensibility,
Yeah.
not just my church sensibility, because my church sensibility would be great in a church, a Black church, let's say, but I want to make sure we get the world, not just the Black church.
Right.
So then I may ask her on a fifth type take, I say, give me a verse one more time. Will you maybe, she'll say, I know what I'll do for you. I'll give you what's called a straight reading. I said, what's a straight reading? She said, I'll give you one more take where I sing closer to just the melody. I said, okay. And then she'll do one more take, sing a little bit closer to the melody. But when I get back home here to my studio, Tarpon Studios at that time, to put it together, or wherever I was, inevitably, the take that had that grease on it would be the one I would end up using, because it just was so good that I had to go with it. So that's how I did Who's Zooming Who, and then Until You Say You Love Me, those two records. And they were phenomenal. Then Preston said, cut that freeway, and we did. We cut the freeway. We could Ain't Nobody Ever Loved You, and a couple of more. Then I went back to Detroit the second time. Now we're going to be in the room there doing the freeway. And that had magic about it. Dave Frazier just put the tape on, and you hear that don't ska don't 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 don't ska don't. And she was like, uh-oh. And then I could look at her, and we both love music. We both are going to serve the music. We're gonna love each other, be best of friends to serve the music. And then she's like, what do you want to eat? Norma do going down there and get us a, get some fried chicken. Norma do going down there and get a cheeseburger. Man. Norma do going down and get whatever I want, That's how it goes. While that food's coming, she'll go on there, undo her pant so that her belly got room to breathe deep.
I love it.
And she'll go in there and she'll sing it. And you know what I realized on Freeway of Love? I thought, well, I had a little lyric idea I might want to bring on her. I went out there to look on the music. It has a music stand. I went around to look at the music. There was no lyric on the music stand. All of Freeway of Love was memorized.
Wow.
6 minutes. Because if I did 2 or 3 or 4 different takes of it, it'd be the same. She had memorized what she wanted to do. So that's why I realized what a professional person she is, to have all 6 minutes memorized what she wanted to do with that record.
That is absolutely amazing. You touched on something that I was going to ask you, but it's how important it is for a producer to know an artist, them as a person, not just vocally, because you can't handle everybody the same way. You got to kind of have a connection to the person of who they are, so you know how to effectively manage them in the studio. So that was awesome.
Yeah, it's called love. You have to really love the person and slow down to listen, because this microphone is daunting, and to get behind that microphone is daunting. You want to make something that's going to last 100, 200, forever years. Yeah. So, and it's a balancing act, because I know that the best of that record is going to happen soon. The best of that record is not going to happen hours and hours from now. The best of that record is going to happen in the first hour and a half.
Love it. Love it.
Let's
take a trip now.
Jimmy's starting some stuff. Jimmy is starting some stuff. This is the microphone of Freeway of Love, Who's Zooming Who, that I would take with me to Detroit with Dave Frazier to do those records. It looks very unassuming, but guess what? This little microphone could handle the power of Aretha, and could also, when she wanted to get really soft on the next line, could be really sensitive. So it could be sensitive, and then if she belt, could handle it and not distort. So this is the mic I would use not only for Aretha, but for Whitney too, and a lot of the folks I was doing at the time. And I found it through Bruce Swedeen, who was working with Michael Jackson. Because he said, for these type of people, you need someone who can really handle this type. So this is the mic we use. It's called
Can you give us the name of that microphone?
It's the Shure SM7. Shure SM7. Sure. It's not expensive, Mike, but it can handle the Queen.
Love it.
Yeah. Okay.
So I want to take you on a little trip.
Yeah.
To another studio.
Okay.
And to work on the Whitney album. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And I believe this was your studio that we recorded.
Well, you're talking now, this will be the second Whitney album you're talking now, right? The Whitney album.
Yes, we are talking about the Whitney self-titled album.
Thank you, my love. That would now be in the brand new Tarpon Studios where I sit today. You can see from your view this beautiful room. And Whitney was in here. And the way that album was done, I am going to go back. I'm going to start with Clive Davis again, because Clive was really kind to me after we had our success with How Will I Know. I only had one song on the first album of Whitney, but it was the fastest rising #1 called How Will I Know. And then he said, come to my bungalow in Bel Air, Beverly Hills. And when I went there, he had chosen 4 to 5 pieces of music that he wanted to be for this next Whitney album. And he played for me I Want to Dance When He Loves Me.
Wow.
Where Do Broken Hearts Go? The song for her mother, Sissy, I Know Him So Well, as a duet. And maybe one more. It wasn't so emotional yet, because so emotional didn't come till later. And it was Whitney's idea to do For the Love of You, but he may have also had it because he knew Whitney loved For the Love of You.
Wow.
And then I played for him, and in that session, a song of Preston Glasses called Love is a Contact Sport, which he said, okay, that sounds cool. So then when I left that meeting, I had those songs with me on cassettes. And it was my job then to make these songs that he loved be ready for the world, sound like what you hear on those records for the world. And my consciousness is always Kalamazoo, Michigan, a little broke down joint called The Post. It's where veterans go to get a drink and ladies go to have a little dance. And there's a jukebox in that corner where they'll play Al Green, the real music. They play real music in this place. And in my mind, I always want everything I do to be in that jukebox in that corner as real music. And for the people to sound like the people. And Quincy Jones taught me something which I always think about. The outhouse bottom with the penthouse view. The outhouse bottom with the penthouse view. That's that get on the bottom. That thing that makes everybody feel like, damn. But then the song can be a pop song on top. Really pretty. Oh, it's with somebody. Somebody who loves me. See, I'm trying to get everybody.
Yeah.
It's a real conscious decision. It's a real conscious decision how to get everybody. So that's what we're doing. We're making that second album for Whitney, like How Will I Know, but an extension of it. Now we're bigger and badder, because now we're going to take on 7 tracks on this new album. And so I cut these things with my team. Randy Jackson on the Moog bass, Corrado the genius from Italy on guitar.
Yeah.
And he brings the international flair, which I know I need. Walter's a young cat growing up now, he's strong. My right hand was Preston Glass doing the bells, keyboards, ideas, helping me, just always in my ear. We could try this, try that. Programming some drums. And then from there, I would have my engineer David Frazier, because we were using tape back at the time. So we had to have two sets of machines running, 48 tracks, with assembly codes. So you can get enough stuff going on that you needed going on from the machinery of programming machines, bass drums, hand claps, percussion elements, overdubbing my live drums along with it. The Moog synthesizer is still a new commodity of sound, sounding like what's going on in the bass, but tough and gritty like nails. And then the funk guitars, and then all the pretty keyboards and beautiful synthesizers. So, Michael Jackson with Quincy had put down such a great gauntlet of sound from the Thrillers and Off the Walls that when it came time for Whitney, and, I have Prince to draw from, Quincy to draw from, Michael to draw from, all this contemporary music to draw from, and of course, my own sense of what it should be. So we put those records together. I Want to Dance When He Loves Me, cut everything, backing vocals and lead vocals.
Man.
Where Do Broken Hearts Go, backing vocals and lead vocals, all of it. 5 of those tracks cut so that when Whitney walked in this door, I could just sit her down, because I knew she was tired. They worked her to death. So just sit down, relax, her and Robin. And I could play her the music. And she'd go, whoa, now I understand what we're going to do with this music. Because she was hearing a lead vocalist, not trying to be her, but just laying it out in a soul way with the track smoking. And it just really helped us. Because I know from working with Whitney, she told me earlier, she didn't want to be like beat up in the studio and hanging out for a lot of hours in the studio. So the only way I could get around that was have my work all together. And then I said, well, what do you want to start with first? She said, well, I don't know these new songs. Clive shows them. I like them, but I don't really know them yet. So let me start with a song I know called For the Love of You, Isley Brothers. I said, perfect. So the first thing we put up in this room was For the Love of You. Mm-hmm. Know that I'm living for the love of you. That song. And on that speaker over there, I'd stack 20 harmony vocals. On this speaker, another 20 harmony vocals. She'd be her own choir of angels, doing all the ooh, all the voices harmonized. So when she would come in here and hear it, she'd go, the sound is glorious. It was all her. She hadn't experienced that yet. Her voice being all the voices.
Wow.
And it gave her wings, air, and encouragement and enthusiasm and inspiration to carry on for the next days, get all the other music recorded. Like the next day we did I Want to Dance When He Loves Me. And she was hot. She got excited about the sound. Mm-hmm. So I Want to Dance When He Loves Me, you know, I would spoon feed a bit. You know, we just work it out a little bit, get the ending going. Like I always get the ending first, get fireworks first. Blow, 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 blow. Because, you know, Whitney, Aretha, these great singers, they're church girls. They can just go. You haven't got to even say anything. Just if they hear the background singing, you know what I mean? They can just work off the background. They can work off the background. It was Whitney's idea where it kind of came to this place. Say you want to dance. Say you want to dance.
Yes.
Dance. Oh. With somebody who knows. That little chant came out of her just blowing. I was like, uh-oh, we got to use that. So then we injected that as part of the ending B hook.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Amazing.
Then I said, now let's go back and get the first verse. Clock strikes upon the hour and the sun begins to fade. You just work on the first verses a few times. Second verse, put that in there. Work on that. Do a little harmonization. Get it. Find the right voice. With Whitney, it was always which voice should we use? She had the head voice, the chest voice, and the middle voice.
Right.
So within which of those three are we going to try on these different lines? And then that's what we do. She was very, very patient to be willing to try those different voices. And that made the success happen. Because then you said, that's the sound for that one. That's the sound for that line. And then she could do that. And then that's what we do. Then we put the other choruses together. And because everything was done beforehand, all the track, all the backing, it was like an instant smash. I said, go home. After 3 hours of her in the studio, every song was always 3 hours in the studio, no more than 3 hours. Go home, and then we'd stay with my crew and comp it, put it all together. The breath, everything. Even in the midnights. Come the next morning. So then when she got here at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, I could say, sit down and play that smash. You go, oh, it's a hit. Yep. All you got to do is a little ad lib here or a little harmony there. It's done. And it was. Just like you hear on those records. Only after a 3-hour session. That's how badass she was and how quick we were getting these things because I knew we couldn't wear her out.
This is just absolutely amazing to hear about all this iconic music happening right here in the Bay Area. I had much more to ask you, but I want to give space to take some questions. But before we do that, do you have any closing remarks you'd like to share about working as a producer in the San Francisco Bay Area?
I'm very grateful to God. I come from Kalamazoo, Michigan, not far from Chicago and Detroit, right between those places. And I'm just a God lover, a music lover. I'm very, very grateful to be in this chair talking to you now, looking at Aretha, looking at Prince, Carlos, Muhammad Ali over there, Whitney, being able to tell you that I've been able to hear those great voices on these speakers with my ears. It's more than I can handle. It's more than I can handle. But I'm so honored to be in this chair. And I love them. And I'm so happy we have these great records to share with the world forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And thanks to everyone who made it happen, from Clive Davis and his great crew, to my great musicians, to my great recording engineers like David Frazier, you know, who knew how to really record these voices. You know, you need a great engineer.
Absolutely.
You know, even Prince wanted David. Prince couldn't have none.
Right.
Okay. All right. What do you want to ask me? What do you want to ask me?
So I'm going to turn it over to Kristen. She's collected some questions.
Thank you so much. This is such an exciting evening. I can't believe this great conversation. I wish we could just keep on going. We might have to call you back for another one of these.
Sure, it's fine.
We got some great questions from our guests. And the first one from Kavan was, did Aretha Franklin love the song Freeway of Love when it was played to her initially? And what arrangement changes did you have to make for her? And I know you kind of covered this, but is there anything else to that story?
Freeway of Love was loved immediately. And when I went back to work with her in Detroit, I was blown away how professional she was at having the whole thing memorized. You know, all the little things she would say in that song, just like on the ending, all her little ad libs would just be so beautiful, all memorized. And then also, when I went back to Detroit, it'd be snow. She would say, well, you look out your window, Narada. What do you see? I say, oh yeah, there's snow coming down. Now, you know, I don't drive in that snow. Day one, day two. Narada, what do you see out your window? It's still snowing, Queen. Now, you know, I don't drive in that snow. Day three, what do you see? Yeah, it's still snowing. Now, you know, I don't drive. That could go on for 4 or 5 days. But when you go to the studio and it's not snowing anymore, oh, number one. So that's what I want to say about Freeway of Love. That's how it was. There's a lot of snow coming down, so we had some time in the hotel room. But when we did make it there, it'd be a number one record. And I also, at that time, she was still smoking. And she loved the sound of her voice. She would come in to hear a playback, and you could just see her just smiling and loving the sound that came out of her. And she'd have a cigarette, and the ash would just stay on the cigarette. It wouldn't fall off. I kept waiting for the ash to fall off. The ash would never fall off. Just hang on the cigarette, enjoying looking at her, how happy she was.
Outstanding. Remember smoking? Jeez.
But the next time she stopped smoking. But at that time she was still smoking. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I think we were all smoking back then. Okay, so Miles sent in a question. He wanted to know, what were the biggest challenges you faced in the production of Whitney in comparison to Aretha and Who's Zooming Who?
The biggest challenge with Whitney?
What were the challenges you faced in producing Whitney, the Whitney album, in comparison to Who's Zooming Who? Or
Really,
I don't know.
There's no comparison. They're different animals to me. And I know at one point, to be honest with you, when I was doing the first Aretha album, which we're talking about, I was at the Automat Studios when I got the call to do How Will I Know? And I said, no, I cannot do Whitney Houston. And it was Jerry Griffin from the phone. He said, no, you have to make time for Whitney. I said, no, I can't mess with this Aretha record. It's really my full consciousness. He said, yeah, but this is Sissy Houston's daughter. Take time for her. And then I could just tell in his voice, I should take him serious. So I said, well, then send me your idea of what you want to do. And then he did. And then we made time for How Will I Know? But I said, no, I can't produce Whitney Houston. So that's how it first started out. But then after I met her on How Will I Know in New York, when she was 19, how beautiful she was, how glorious, and the sound that came out of her, and the articulation, every little thing she wanted to do was just like effortless. Then I realized the world was going to get whooped.
Amazing.
So I never compare them, but that's how it was. A rough beginning. I didn't want to do her, but then when I did it, I was like so happy I did. And they're just two different. They're just two different sounds altogether. Whitney's got her own sound. Aretha's got her own sound. Yeah.
Well, Linda submitted a question and she says hello, and she asked that when you produced I Want to Dance with Somebody, did you ever think it would become such a mega hit? And how has the success of this song, including the title of the current film, affected your life and your memories of dear Whitney?
I know that Whitney loved Jesus, and she would pray every session with me to make a great recording. She would pray to God to bless the session and to make something that would last, as these things are lasting. It was a conscious thought and a conscious prayer and asking God to come through. So I'm not surprised at its longevity. She's so beautiful and she sings so wonderful. And we know about the Queen of Soul, but right next to the Queen of Soul is our great Whitney Houston. So to me, I'm not surprised by its wonderful, its wonderfulness and its lasting ability. And because the funk never dies, and Whitney and Aretha, they never die. So I'm just really happy to be part of it. I really am.
Wonderful. Kev Choice is here, and his question is, what is your production process like today with artists, and how has it changed over the years? Also, what advice would you give up and coming producers?
What advice I would give? Just to be a good listener. It's important to be a good listener. John McLaughlin would always say, listen. And Miles Davis taught him to that whole listening curve. You must listen. I mean, even the greatest musicians have to listen to each other. That's how it comes together. So I would say, listen, smell good, look good if you can, that you're someone people can be around in a studio, in a closed environment, and not get too tired of. It's important that you can be a friend while you're making these records. Someone can trust, like a therapist, can trust where their inner feeling is to talk about things. Because when you want to do a song like Where Do Broken Hearts Go, well, maybe you haven't had your heart broken yet. So you got to imagine your heart broke. Do you even sing it? So we got to lower all the lights, make everything super blue, put this one little candle, just one little lonely candle. And you got to imagine how you're going to sing it with your heart broke. So you got to be able to switch those gears. That's the hardest part I found as a producer. Switch the gear to make a sad record. That's really a sad record. And how my production has changed. Now we use Pro Tools, not tape so much. I love tape, but we do now use, to be current and to be competitive in the digital domain. The lower bottom end that we can get on the digital domain is quite powerful. It took me a while to kind of adapt to liking it and to knowing how to work it, where I can love the sound. But I still very much write the songs the same way. I still very much try to do my pre-production, do my vocal, get that all the way I think it should be before I ever get with a singer. So when I get with a singer, I kind of know what I think it should be like. Then they bring something fresh to it, that's fine. But at least I know if it's not clicking, I know that I've worked out what I think will work. So I have kind of a B plan, a B idea in my spirit.
You started off as a performer, and
drummer, yes, drummer. I'm a drummer, yes.
And how did you make that tradition from lead performer to going behind the glass? Did you keep it up? Did you do both? Did you have to give something up? How'd that go? Thanks, Marcus, for the question.
It happened early on in my life after I made my first solo album, Garden of Light. I was asked from Atlantic Records to produce a jazz album for Don Cherry. He played pocket trumpet with Ornette Coleman. They wanted the Bitches Brew, Miles Davis type of album for Don Cherry. He was a very spiritual man, played pocket trumpet. So I got with him and we made this Tibetan beautiful jazz album with Tony Williams, Lenny White, Raymond Gomez, Stanley Clarke, all my jazz cats and rock cats come together up under Don. And it was a fantastic event. So that was my first technical production. And then not long after, I went in dance field, I should have loved you, tonight I'm all right. I don't want to but else dance with you, my dance stuff. And out of that, I met the great Henry Allen, who ran Cotillion Records through Atlantic Records. And he had a young Stacey Lattisaw signed. So I went to Henry, I said, why don't you let me produce about 4 or 5 songs for her? And if you like them, it's great. I can just finish the album. If you don't like it, then you haven't lost that much. And he said, okay. So then I came back to San Francisco at the record plant, and I wrote with my team, Let Me Be Your Angel, Dynamite, and Jump to the Beat, and My Love. And we rehearsed them first and cut them really fast. I went to Washington, D.C. and New York, put Stacey's vocals on them quickly, put the strings on, mixed it, and handed it in. And we were under budget, and we made hits. So with the success of Stacey came the phones ringing, Clive Davis calling, Henry wanting more from Sister Sledge, and Angela Bullfield, Phyllis Hyman, Patty Austin, all things just start clicking. So that's kind of how it happened. It's just kind of magically happened. Magically happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an incredible transition.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. One of the questions was from Gibbs, who's an engineer producer here in our chapter. He was talking about that you have this great team around you that helps you create these wonderful productions. But as the producer and the decision maker, how did you know when the hits were done? As in, like, no more stuff to add, we got it in the bag, we're good to go. How did you know when to stop?
That's actually easier than you think. It just, to me, it sounds good. When something sounds good, it sounds good, and that's good. Something sounds good, that's good, it sounds good. You don't want to mess things up. You don't want to just keep putting stuff on. You're going to mess up, put too much stuff to compete with the great singers. So I've always known that less is more. I never understood it so much, but in fact, it's true that you can, if you have strong drums and bass, strong vocal, you know, a strong guitar, strong a few other things you might want, that's enough. You don't need to keep putting stuff on stuff. And when you mix, you can also hear, yeah, this sounds good. This sounds really nice. Yeah.
You know when it's done.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of knowing when it's done, I'm going to hand it back to Nona. Thanks for your time on our Q&A. Thanks for the questions, everybody. Nona, Narada, you want to take us away?
Narada, thank you for sharing these Bay Area iconic moments with us straight out of the vault. It's been our pleasure. We are blessed to have you right here in the Bay Area. Blessings to you. Pop back in and talk to us anytime.
Thank you, Nona. God bless you.
Thank
It's been
you,
a
everyone,
wonderful,
for
wonderful time.
attending
I got to
tonight.
say a fast shout out to my brother I'm seeing just now, my man, Larry Baptiste, who's been my brother, my friend for so long in the Bay Area. When I first was doing my early I Should Have Loved You, he was doing the Bill, the conga player, Bill, what's his name? Larry, help me out. Bill, anyway, you were there with Clay Tobin. You've been there all along, and you're running the Grammy thing so beautiful along with Nona. And I just love your friendship and your kindness and your good spirit of love. And I just love the people in the Bay Area. So I want to encourage everybody here to stay cool, stay as lovely as you are. Don't get beaten down by this thing out here. We're running it, we're ruling it. And the world looks to us for our love. The world looks to us for our sensationalism of love. And come around the business of Tarpon Studios. Come make hits here. Come do things with us. Let's have fun in the world while we're still young and sexy. Peace.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.